Hi everyone! Welcome back to my proper classical guitar position series. Today I want to talk about the right hand and the right arm and where you're going to place that on the guitar to help you play. So what the right hand is going to do for us, if you're right-handed, is going to pluck the string to help produce a sound. Whether the strings are open or you're using they're going to help produce the sound. You need your right hand. Again, if you're left-handed, this is going to be your left hand, so just flip everything I'm saying for that hand. So in order to have a good right hand position when we're holding the classical guitar, first we got to look at where our arm is going to go. So our arm is going to sit on this part of the guitar when we play. Now, everyone is different. Everyone's arm lengths are different, finger length, hand, everything is different. So these are just general guidelines to kind of help you figure out what's best for you. So one thing you could think about is, first with your elbow is going to be back behind the front of the guitar. So you're never going to be over like this, leaning over when you're playing classical guitar. Elbow's always going to be back. And it's going to stay in this general area here. Again, it might differ depending on the person and your arm length. But you're not going to be too far down here, because if you're ever down here, then you can see how uneven I am and how hard it's going to be for me to play. If you're too far up here, again, same thing, this shoulder is raised too much and it's changing my hand position. So you want something where your shoulders are going to be nice and even and you can get good hand position, you're comfortable and relaxed. That's another big thing. You want to be relaxed and comfortable. You don't want to have a bunch of tension and be really tense when you play, especially in your position. So one thing to help you figure out where exactly your elbow should go, if you look at this part of my bridge right here, I have this little 90-degree angle. If you cut that angle in half in the middle, you can make a 45-degree angle and trace it out here. And that's generally in the area where your elbow should be. Now, I place my forearm is on this part of the guitar here. So normally it's like here on my arm, the base of my forearm, not right in the elbow crease, but before it. That's where I put my arm. Again, it depends on the length of your arm. But you don't want to be too far back where it's going to be hard for you to reach the strings with your fingers. You also don't want to be too far forward where you're too much under the string and then it's hard to pluck the string as well. So you want something that's comfortable for you. Again, elbow's not ahead, it's behind. I'm at like the base of my forearm, not even the halfway point of my forearm, more towards the back of my forearm is where I am. So then we want to think about our wrist. So our wrist does need to be curved, but you don't want it, again, too curved or too flat. You want it just right in the middle. You want it to feel relaxed too. You don't want to be forcing a curve in your wrist or feel really tight or tense or creating tension that's going to harm your wrist. You want it to be relaxed and natural too. One tip I had read before in the Pumping Nylon book from Scott Tennant is if you make a fist and then you try and bend your wrist, you can feel how it hurts and it's tense there. You don't want that when you play. You want it to be nice and relaxed and natural. One thing you could think about when trying to find the right height, if you put 4 fingers from your left hand underneath and then put your right hand wrist on top, that could give you a good amount of height. I like mine a little higher than that, and again, that's because my fingers are pretty long and so is my arm. But you don't want it too flat on the guitar because then you're going to pluck the strings this way, and that's what you don't want to do. You don't want to pluck out. So you don't want your wrist flat like that, and you especially wouldn't want it flat against the guitar. You also don't want it too far out because then again it's going to be hard to actually pluck the strings. I'm too far out and I can't get a good angle with them. So again, you want it at a height that's relaxed and comfortable, but just right. So this is my height right here, what it looks like. You also want your arm and your wrist to be straight. So I'm not turning my hand or my wrist like this. It's all straight. You don't want it too far this way either. That's going to create some tension and not going to help you with tone. So once you get your arm in the good spot, your wrist at a good height, everything straight, you want to place your right hand fingers when they're on the string, you want to place them at the edge of the sound hole. This is generally the natural tone of your guitar. Again, every guitar is going to sound different because the woods are different, the bracing's different, all that. So this is your general neutral tone here. You can get into tone color changes by moving your arm and your hand, but right now we're just going to stick at the edge of the sound hole for your normal tone. Alright, so you got everything lined up, everything good, nothing forced, everything's relaxed. Your shoulders relaxed, your arms relaxed, don't want any tension. Most of the time, a lot of people, I know I do, have a habit of creating tension when they play, so you don't want to start with tension, especially if you're going to create it. You have to learn how to release it, but you don't want to start with any. You want to be nice and relaxed when you have your good hand position. Now, for those of you that don't know, and I'll go in a little more detail about this in a separate video, but for the right hand, we're using our thumb, index, middle, and ring finger. We're not using our pinky, and each finger has a different letter name. So thumb is P, index is I, middle is M, ring is A, and again, not using our pinky. So you have P, I, M, A. So if I put my ring finger, my A finger, on the first string, my middle finger, my M finger, on the second string, my I, index finger, on the third string, and my thumb on the fourth string, I have this hand position right here. Now with your thumb, also known as P, you don't want it too far out and away from your hand and fingers, and you don't want it too far in. So you want it ahead of your index finger, but not too far. You need it ahead of your index finger because it's going to have to be able to do its job to pluck the string, and your index finger is also going to have to pluck the string. If they are on top of each other, like this, it's going to be hard to pluck the string because they're going to run into each other and they're not going to have room to move. If your thumb's too far in, like this, it's putting my thumb at a very bad angle and it's creating all this tension, and again, it's going to be hard to play. You also, when you pluck, you don't want your thumb to go like under your finger. So it's going to look like this, essentially. It's out in front, but it's not too far. If I put it too far, it changes the direction of my wrist, which is something you don't want because you want it nice and straight and aligned with everything. So it's slightly out in front like this. Now, when I pluck like that, after I pluck, you do run into some of touching between your thumb and your index finger, but it's after the stroke is done. It's not before, where it's preventing you from actually plucking the string. So you want to think about that too. Proper thumb placement, not too far this way, not too far where it's hiding behind and you can't see it. It's slightly out in front of your index finger. When you pluck the string, you also want to think about moving from the bigger joints in your hand. That way you're using the muscles from your forearm. If you use the smaller joints, so like here and here, you're not going to get as much power and your hand's going to tire out more quickly. Whereas if you think about moving from the joints in your knuckles and back here on your thumb, you're using the bigger muscles, so you're going to have more power and your hand is not going to tire out as quickly, which is something we all want because we all want to play for a long amount of time, right? So think about that too. Also with my hand, I have this kind of like a C, you know? Again, this goes back to the wrist placement and everything, but if my wrist is too flat, my hand's gonna look like this. And it's kind of like straight and then it turns, which is you don't want. You want to have this nice arch, and you can curl your fingers nice and move your hand. And again, you want to think about moving from the bigger joints. So when I play, I'm not bending these little tip joints here. They are staying nice and curved. Now, when I started, they were not always like that. This is something that happened over time. One thing I did to help out with that and to force myself to move from the knuckle joint and from a bigger joint and to use a bigger muscle is I got my hand in a good position, and then I took Scotch tape and I taped around these joints. So that way if I was bending it, I could feel it against the tape, and it would train my hand and my mind to stop doing that. So again, I didn't always play like this. You know, when you're first starting out, there's so many things to think about. So that's a good tip if you're having trouble with moving from a certain joint and if you're bending these guys a lot like this, you don't want to do that. You can get your hand in a good position how it should be, and then put a little bit of tape around so you can feel when you're bending. Because when you're playing, sometimes it's really hard to tell if you're actually doing that or not. Another thing, you could record your hand. You could just play some open arpeggios or something and kind of record your hand, or even look at your hand. Recording's nice because you can play it back and kind of critique yourself without like playing and watching at the same time. Another good thing for this whole right hand position is to work on it in front of a mirror so you can see. It's one thing to look at it from this angle, which is great, but you also need to look at it from, you know, if someone was looking at you, so you can actually see what it looks like. And if you're in the proper position. So a mirror is a really good idea. Also, taking a photo or a video on a tripod, that's a good idea too. So all of this will help with your playing if you have really good, proper right hand position. So this is very important, and sometimes it takes time to find like the position that you want. I know my right arm and hand, like all of this has changed over the years. I've seen pictures of myself from my first recital when I was in undergrad in school for classical guitar, and I remember seeing those pictures not that long ago and being like, that's how my hand used to be? What? You know, like sometimes you don't realize how much it actually changes, or, you know, until you look back at something like that. But yeah, I didn't always have the position I have now. So this is kind of something that you have to experiment with, you have to grow with it. It'll change over time. You become a better player, you become more advanced, you see different things that work for you, things that don't work for you. Some things that also affect that are the type of support you're using, if you're using a footstool or a different type of support, how high the guitar is. All these kinds of things affects everything. So think about that as well. But this, like I said, it's something that's going to evolve and change. A lot of when I started, I'm not playing the same way I did, thank the Lord, when I first started out. But that's the cool thing about playing guitar as well. You can kind of look back and see like, wow, look how much I've progressed, and look how different my playing position is. Like, this is great, I've improved. So don't, be too hard on yourself about it. If you're having a hard time finding the position and figuring it out, just think about the basics that I told you. Look out for those things that you don't want to do. And in time, you're going to learn. It's going to feel more natural. You're going to find things that work. You're going to find things that don't work for you.